So today I want to talk to you about your new local United Way. And every one of those words means something. Keisha always tells me, words mean things, Mom.
Words mean things.
So words mean things this morning. So first I'm going to tell you it's yours because every United Way represents the county that it exists in. You know, a lot of organizations that have a big national or global presence also have a lot of rules that they have to follow. You know, they have to do things a certain way. With United Way, the rules that we have to follow are around financial accountability, that we have an audit every year, that we follow a lot of financial rules. There's a big, nice thick book, which is very important in these days as people are concerned about their money and how it's being used and where it's going. So we have that. We have the overall direction of United Way worldwide, and then we get a lot of help, a lot of assistance. We get all kinds of toolkits. We get marketing material, PSAs. We get free training every year because we're members of United Way. So there's all kinds of cool stuff. So we follow the brand, but as far as what we do, that's determined by our community. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but what happened was United Ways around the world started looking at success differently a few years ago. And dollars raised, of course, is hugely important because you can't do the work without the dollars. But it's bigger than that. We could raise a lot of dollars, and we can put those dollars into programming and still not make a difference. And then that would be, well, it would be a shame, and it would be poor stewardship of local dollars, right? I mean, what a waste. And so the importance of being able to see, you know, a lot of times you think that what you're doing is making a difference, but if you don't measure it, you don't really know. And so we started on this journey to try to measure the impact that we were having in our community. Is it really making a difference? Well, this thing works. That's so awesome. So one of the things that we looked into was this whole concept of collective impact. And collective impact is, it's the belief that one organization cannot solve a community problem. That if you don't work together, you're not going to be as effective. So, you know, problems weren't started by one group. You know, they're community problems, and they need community solutions. We need people to come together and support one another. You know, in the past, funders always looked at agencies individually. And so each agency had this heavy burden of trying to prove that they were the ones that were going to solve this problem better than anybody else because there's not very many dollars. We're all competing for these dollars, right? And so, you know, they would propose this, and then when it comes time to do their report, they would try to make the case that the work they did had a particular impact on a community issue, all by itself in this little silo. It really, when you stop and think about it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And when you work that way, you get a lot of duplication of service and a lot of wasted money, really, and not nearly the impact that you could have. So there's two parts of outcomes that I want to talk to you a little bit about. The first one is that United Way sets the example for us worldwide in doing a lot of good background research about what the needs are in our country and around the world, but nationally setting some goals here of what are some things that really might make a big difference in our country if we worked on it. So this thing is called the Global Results Framework. And when we did our reporting this year, some of the questions we asked our agencies to report on were the local goals that we had developed in community conversations, working with our agencies, working with professionals in the fields that we were concerned with. But the other part that we asked them to report on were these global results framework. So here's one way we connect to worldwide. If we're doing things here locally that are working on national goals, then we feed that information up to them, and we're a part of that change. So United Way Worldwide, because it is so extensive, you know, a part of pretty much every community, you have a lot of opportunity to make change across the nation. So the idea was that we would bring resources together around the country, just like we do here locally, whether that's financial resources, human resources, whatever, and then we would use our programs and our services to create systemic change within our communities and across the nation. So the whole idea was changing lives, and here are the national goals. Children entering school ready, successful in primary school. Youth that gain the knowledge, skills, and credentials essential for success in the workplace. Individuals and families able to improve their socioeconomic status, and individuals and families able to lead healthy lives. Now, something that I honestly found fascinating and was very excited about is that when we started this whole process back in 2014, having community conversations, we were at the Blue Chip, we were at Best Western in LaPorte, we gathered people in, we ate a nice breakfast, and we sat around and we had conversations. And when we initially went into that, I was very careful to make sure that we didn't, you know, being a forensic interviewer, you don't ask leading questions, right? And so I was very careful with that when we first started this work, that the concerns and the aspirations that were generated out of those conversations were not colored in any way by what we thought as United Way needed to be done. So United Way National, here's what I mean by that, focuses on education, financial stability, and health. I think that's great. I don't think there's very many things that could be a need in a community that wouldn't fall under one of those three. But when we did our first community conversation, we didn't talk about that. We just talked about what do you aspire for your community. When we went through this process, we partnered with our Unity Foundation, which both Unity and United Way are across the parking lot in the Star Center, and good partners. And we used something called the Harwood Institute for Public Innovation. We used their method of what they call turning outward. And they have some great stuff about how to have that public discourse and how to bring communities together to solve problems. A lot of really good stuff. And that was a good guiding light, I guess, for us as we went through this. So, like I said, we didn't try to push the conversation in any particular direction, but we had a group of interns from Purdue Northwest that assisted us through all this work, and they would take all the data. We had a scribe at every table where the conversation was, and they would capture all the comments and the information that was being generated at those tables. And then they would break it into categories. And you know what? It fell into education, income, and health. I'm not kidding. It was the craziest thing. I mean, it makes sense because those are the key, you know, legs to the stool in our life. You can have great health, but if you are not able to pay your bills, your life is lacking. Or you could be financially stable, but suffering from very, very poor health. You know, and so we really need all of those factors to come together. So, as you, oh, isn't that cute? Oh, thank you, Connor. All right, so we had basically three parts to the work that we did back in 2014-15. We took all the community assessments that had been done in the community from 2005 to 2013 was the last one. And we took the time to go through those and try to, yeah, I'm probably walking way out of the camera, aren't I? Sorry about that. I like to walk around. So we took that information and we did the same thing. We kind of like put it into buckets. You know, what are the needs? So we put it into buckets. And so we have a whole report on that that's on our website. Right, Kish?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. Okay. So that was first part. Then we did a study on the demographics of our community because we wanted to make sure, we knew we couldn't talk to everybody in LaPorte County, but we wanted to make sure that the people we did talk to were representative of our county. So we looked at zip codes. We looked at gender. We looked at socioeconomic status. We looked at race. We looked at language spoken in the home. Probably some other things that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head. But we really made the effort. And if we didn't have a certain group represented, we'd go out and do a focus group with a group, pull them together. So we felt good about the results we were getting. And then the other thing we did is we did best practice research on what's going on in these areas around the country that's working. And we had our interns pull out keys to success, which I think is fascinating. And the thing that we did, which is, I can die happy now. I mean, seriously, this was my vision for United Way, was to create a framework where we could solve any community problem. And I believe that we have done that. So I'm a happy camper. And as a matter of fact, we'll talk about it in a few minutes, but we just this past week took on a project, and I don't even think my staff know about this yet, but we just took on a project that has to do with homelessness that's going to follow this exact same process of gathering information and putting it into this same kind of framework where you bring the community together then to solve the problem, looking at best practice around the country. And I think, Jimmy, you and I talked about this the other night. So it works. It works. And how awesome is that, that we have a way now to solve community problems? So we did the listing, we did the surveys. You can take a survey on our website that asks the same questions that we were asking in the conversations. After we did that, we pulled experts in the field of education, financial stability, health. We pulled them together separately and said, okay, here's what our communities told us they want. Here's what the needs assessments say we need. You're the professional. How would we know if we're successful? How are we going to measure this and be able to see, are we making a difference or not? And so they filled that wonderful spot. From there, we worked with our partner agencies to actually create collaborations that would work toward these goals that we had set as a community. So this was kind of like the whole process. Now, underlying this process is a really important roadmap that we've used and continue to use. This is what undergirds the work. So as of now, we have a youth collaborative that has a pre-K focus and a school-age focus. So you could call it two if you want. And then we have a financial stability collaborative. All of those include some health. So we didn't do a separate health one, but we kind of wove health into the others. And then of course we do some basic needs, safety net type work. So when we did all of our gathering of information, the two things that really stood out for LaPorte County as far as needs and aspirations was we wanted our youth engaged and supported. And secondly, we had to do something about poverty. Those were the two top issues that came to the fore. And so what we've done then is the agencies that work on this kind of programming, we brought them together. We talked about what are the things that we need and aspire to for our community within your area of expertise, so let's say youth, okay? And then each of those organizations talked about, well, we can help move the needle on this part of that goal, and we can hit this objective over here. And they told us, because we didn't want to make our agencies jump through hoops and develop all new programs, and that's not fair, and it wouldn't really help anyone. Organizations have a mission, and you don't want them to get involved in what's called mission creep, where they're trying to play nice in the sandbox, they're trying to get dollars, whatever it might be, and so they adjust what they are doing and start doing things that maybe they're not so good at. Because remember before that when you looked at impact, you were looking at what can one individual agency do. Well, when you do that, you take an agency's core strength, and then they begin to try to diversify that strength and take on things that they're really not good at. Where if they work together in a collaborative, one organization over here that does this well can do that piece for you, and then you do this piece for someone else. And I got to tell you, our agencies are amazing at sharing resources and working together, and just using the strengths that each has to support the other. So this reads kind of like a clock. The very first thing was to develop the common agenda. And I've told you the process we went through to do that. The second part is the shared measurement for data results. And again, we work together to determine what can we track, what can we, what are the areas where we know we can make a difference. So we pulled all that together. Then we looked at mutually reinforcing activities. That's the whole purpose of these collaborations, is that they could support one another and draw from one another's strengths. The next one is the open and continuous communication. And that's, when we get together and we look at where we've come. Every year when we get our results in, which we're going to talk about our results in a little bit here, one of the things that we do, and we did this last year with our financial stability group, we'll be doing it within the next month or so with our youth serving groups. But we came together and we looked at what we'd accomplished and we said, where are the gaps? What are we not doing that really is important to our community? As a result of that, our very first project we launched was on financial stability. And they launched with 3 particular areas they were working on. One was financial literacy. The second one was employment. And the third was homelessness. And they made some really cool strides in those areas. But when we came back together, we said, what else? What do people need? What are other factors in financial stability? And so we talked about the importance of healthy lifestyles. Because if you don't have a healthy lifestyle, you're going to get hit with some really big medical bills, right? I mean, that's really important. And the other thing was education. If you want to be financially stable, a lot of times education or training or certification of some sort is going to help move you into that next level. And so the thing that's cool about these is that they're living projects. It's not like, oh, back in 2014, we figured out everything that needs to be done for LaPorte County. Well, the needs here are going to shift and change. And the role of United Way is to be good listeners, to pay attention to what's going on, and then be conveners and bring the people together to the table that can make an impact to solve those problems and then manage that work. Continue to measure it. Continue to talk with people in the community about what we're doing. It's amazing when you have the conversations. This happens to me all the time. I like to talk to smart people. And I surround myself with them. And I like people that don't agree with me. Because then they come up with ideas that, I never would have thought of that. That's awesome. Now you've got the next piece for the work that you're doing. And then the backbone coordinating organization. I've seen it happen over and over again in a community where you have a lot of great organizations, they're working together on a particular issue, but they're not sustainable because everyone is really busy and has their own job to do. They may accomplish some good things, I'm not saying they don't. They definitely do a lot of times. But the problem is it's hard and it's easy to get off track because there's nobody kind of serving that place of pulling everybody together, tracking what's going on, making sure that people stay on track with whatever the project was. But that's a perfect role for United Way. That's what we do. So this is pretty awesome. Oh, wait, Keisha, wrong side. There we go. Oh, look at that. So I told you about our financial stability collaboration. These and the parts that we were working on, that includes the 2 extra. Make sure I stay on track here. The next one is early childhood or the pre-K years. This one, we wanted to get kids ready for school so that they could be good learners in school. We wanted to increase supported family systems. So, you work with these little ones, but are you working with the family too? If you're familiar at all with, not healthy families, what's the other one? The brain research one, Gail.
Parents as teachers.
Thank you. If you're familiar with parents as teachers, brain research, they always say the parent is the child's first and best teacher. And that's so true. So what are we doing with families right in the homes to help support these families? And then increasing system improvement. Now this is so cool because this wasn't a part of our initial conversations at all. It was after we brought all of our pre-K folks together and we kept hashing it out, that they said, Kris, this is what we really need. We need that the people who are working in the pre-K field to be well educated, to be well trained. We need good, strong systems. And I'm proud to tell you that every pre-K, like preschool, early learning center that United Way funds is level 4 on the paths of quality, which is the highest level that you can go. So we have some great opportunities here in LaPorte County. Then we've got the youth impact, increasing educational opportunities for our kids. There were two sides to this. One was remedial, like tutoring. The other side was enrichment, STEAM. You know, what are we doing in that area? The next one was youth support. So here you've got things like mentoring, you've got counseling, you've got substance abuse prevention, healthy lifestyles, all kinds of things in youth supports. Then the last part is the career and life preparedness. So here we're looking at digital literacy, we're looking at college visits, we're looking at figuring out what careers you're well suited for in the future. All these kinds of things so that when our kids graduate, they graduate with a plan. And these projects are in their infancy. We've got 1 year of data that just came in a week ago. So we can see how far we've come, but in the next month or two, we'll also identify gaps and talk about what more could we do. These projects will continue to grow right along with us. Oh, that's a cute one. Safety net services. So we work with the Red Cross. We fund disaster services for LaPorte County. We require that they show us that our money that we give them was used in LaPorte County. Because, you know, like I said, you get to the United Way of LaPorte County, your money stays right here. There's 1% of your donation that goes out to the national or worldwide organization. Told you all the good things we get as a result of that. The rest of it stays right here. It doesn't go anywhere else. So, anyway, we make sure that the Red Cross money stays here. Wheelchair ramps. This is so, you know, people, seniors that are aging can stay in their home rather than being in a nursing home. For one, people don't usually want to be in a nursing home, and for two, it's a heck of a lot more expensive for someone to be in a nursing home. So let's keep them home as long as we can. Meals on Wheels, same thing. Nice, good, warm meals served to people at home that are nutritious, and at the same time, you've got someone looking your relative in their eye and seeing that they're okay today when they deliver that meal. That's part of that service. So if the person isn't okay, you can bet they're on the phone and they're getting help and they're looking into it. Backpack food for kids. We have kids who don't learn well because they're hungry. And okay, I'll get through this. So, you know, there's a program where they can get a backpack full of food to go home with on the weekend. That's pretty darn cool. Emergency services that we have. So let's talk a little bit here about impact and what did all this accomplish in the past year. So in your folder, you have a sheet that looks kind of like this. And I'm just going to hit a few of them, okay, because they're inspiring to know that we are making a difference. So, we had over 2,000 kids who were in licensed quality daycare here in LaPorte County that was funded through United Way, level 4, paths to quality. We had 137 of them had financial vouchers paid for by United Way for them to be able to be at that pre-K program. They wouldn't have been there otherwise. They made 33 early intervention referrals. So this is where when you get a child and they're in some type of early learning program, there's an opportunity to determine early on if there's any type of learning disabilities or other types of disabilities, that if you identify them early enough, you can make a big difference in the education that that child receives and how far that they can go, their success in life overall. We had 122 kids who were in kindergarten countdown camp this year. This is my baby. I love kindergarten countdown camps. I want to say a special shout out to Angie over there with NIPSCO, because NIPSCO has been a huge funder of our kindergarten countdown camps. What we do with those camps is children are identified during kindergarten roundup. If they've never had a preschool experience, they're eligible for kindergarten countdown camps. They go to 4 weeks of kindergarten with a kindergarten teacher in a school setting, learning how to do all those little things like, you know, walk in line and crisscross applesauce, sit down and put your hands in your lap and listen. And then all the early learning skills. You know, some of these kids have never opened a book. And if you can think about if you have children, how would you like their first day of school to be? That child sits down in kindergarten, they've never opened a book, they've never held a pencil, and the kid right next to them is reading. And the first day of school, they feel like they're stupid. That drives me crazy. So anyway, we do camps. All right.
Nobody cares more about this than Kris Pate, ladies and gentlemen. That's not proof. I'm telling you what.
And you know, I told you in pre-K we wanted to make sure we had well-trained workers. They completed almost 550 hours of training just in the ones that United Way funds. That's pretty amazing. Okay, we had over 1,100 kids got academic supports, tutoring, things like that. We had 94% of our kids served in our programs graduate from high school. That's a pretty good percentage, higher than the average. We had over 2,000 kids in after-school programs. Over 200 kids had a mentor. Over 1,800 kids had summer activities and programs that they were involved in. We had over 1,700 kids involved in substance abuse trainings, for prevention of substance abuse. There were 286 families that had family strengthening opportunities and engagement. That's pretty awesome. Because a lot of times we can work with a child, but if you don't work with that family, you're not going to be as successful. So that's a great number to think of people coming together. And then advocates. We had 79 youth advocates that did over 2,500 interventions. Now an advocate is somebody like a CASA or a KAYA. When we say advocate, we're usually talking about in the legal system. Somebody that is advocating on behalf of that child. And we have high levels of CHINS, Children in Need of Services, in LaPorte County. We need help. If any of you have any heart for young people, I would say become a mentor. Go to Hours for Hours, go have lunch with a kid. Do something that, be a CASA. Go to court for a kid. Be the one that stands up for that kid. Great opportunities to do that. We had over 400 people get job skills training. Over 2,700 applications were submitted. And we had 270 people who either got a job or got a better job directly as a result of programs that are partners with United Way. And if you add it together, we had over 500 individuals who were either homeless or at imminent risk of homelessness, which means if I don't pay my rent Friday, I'm out on Monday, kind of thing, okay? Because of the programs that United Way works with and our partner agencies, families really get the help that they need. Let's see, what else I want to tell you. Here's another one. Active children and adults, 717. Participating in physical activity, healthy food access, nutrition programs, almost 1,500 people here in LaPorte County. Babies born at a healthy weight in United Way programs, 99%. We're one of the worst areas for this sort of thing, with the healthy birth weight and all these birth outcomes. That's pretty awesome. When you make an intervention, it makes a difference, 99%. 99% of our moms in our program got prenatal care. That's a huge predictor of having a healthy birth. A few others here, over 45,000 meals delivered to people in their homes, either people who are aging or people with disabilities that needed that assistance. 330 kids got a backpack going home with them during the school year every weekend. Over 4,900 pints of blood collected. I wanted to take the time to go through this with you because it's one thing to say that collective impact works. It's another thing to look at the numbers and see that it works. Dave's going to talk to you a little while about some other programs that are run specifically by United Way. things like family-wise prescription program, which you'll learn more about. And the amount of money, $172,000 saved in LaPorte County last year because of these discount prescription cards. VITA, anybody who makes under $66,000 a year, United Way will do their taxes for free. Okay? Total financial impact, $1,478,000 in LaPorte County. 211, paid for by United Way. When you pick up the phone and you need a resource and you dial 211, that's United Way. People a lot of times will say, oh, what happened to those little where to turn books? Let me tell you, this is where to turn on steroids. You can get to it through our United Way website, and you can do chats, you can make the phone call, you can look online. If you're an agency and you want a list of frequently used services, you can go on there and print it out. You want to know what people are calling 211 for? You can go in there and print out a report. That's awesome if you're looking at programming, what kind of programs we need to develop, what are people are calling for help, you know? And my little clipper thing. Here we go. Okay. What else are we doing? Okay, so now you get to stretch. You just stretch, don't leave if you want to. So, probably not like that, but anyway, if you want to stretch. The section we're going to move into now, and we're going to go until 10:30 and we're going to take a break. The section we're moving into now is going to be helping you know a little bit more about LaPorte County. What are the demographics? What's going on here? So that's the part we're going to move into now. So you have these in a PowerPoint, and if you want them emailed to you so you can actually read the numbers, so they're big enough, right? Just tell me, I'm happy to do it. So we can see here when you break down by age, our biggest category, 48%, is the 45 to 64. Next to that is the 25 to 44. Just kind of gives you an idea. Good amount in the 5 to 17 and the 65 and over. So that's how we look at age. By race, we are predominantly white. Looks like 12,000 people in our county are African American, and then you see the breakout on, you know, American Indian, Asian, Native Hawaiian. Keisha was here. I think I have to say indigenous people.
Indigenous people.
Okay, indigenous people.
Words mean things.
I know. All right. If you want to see the Hispanic Latino breakout, here you go. We have about 6,700 people who are who self-identify as Hispanic or Latino. Oh, that's a cool one. Connor and I watched the coolest little movie about bees recently, so that's probably that one. Educational attainment. So at high school equivalent, percentage is hard to read, but it looks like it. You know, it is about 30,000 people. So you can read this spectrum. Just going through these quickly, I want you to have the numbers. Population, this was kind of interesting, shows the major areas in LaPorte County and what the population breakout is. So most of our population centers, obviously, Michigan City being the highest, then LaPorte, then Westville, and on down the line. Oh, pretty. Male and female. I had to change this graph. That's how Connor and I got into some of this, because the one I made was really strange. It made it look like there were like twice as many men as women, and I don't think that's right. So anyway, this one's accurate. So you've got 48.5% female, and the rest are male, slightly more males. Okay, now I want to talk about Alice for a minute. Many of you in this room have heard the term Alice. If you haven't, it's an acronym that stands for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. So we're talking about people who are working, but they're not making ends meet. Okay? So we want to talk about this a little bit because, as I told you, the initial work we did, poverty was a really, really important focus for us here in LaPorte County. And so we've got, here's the population estimated in 2016, 110,000, 42,000 households. You see the median income, 53.5. Unemployment rate, 6.7. But this is what I would draw your attention to. So Alice households, 23% of our population here. And then households in poverty is another 13%. So if you add those up, that's 36%, more than a third of our population in LaPorte County is either in poverty or they're struggling to make ends meet, one crisis away from being in poverty, okay? And then this was interesting, here's a breakout, and on our website you can find the full Alice report. Your slides have the URL, I think that's the right term, to go and get the full report. But Kingsford Heights, 61% of the population there is either in poverty or struggling. City of LaPorte, 55%. Michigan City, 53%. Union Township, 53%. Michigan Township, 50%. And families with children make up 46% of those struggling families. So when I said there's 36% that are either in poverty or struggling, 46%, almost half of those are children. We have very high poverty rates with our children here. And another 37% of that group are seniors. So that only leaves, I think it's like 17% that's either couples without children or singles. The rest of it, we're talking about our families and our older people that are really, really struggling. Two parts of our population that we really want to support and make sure that they're doing well. And this has changed over time. So poverty is this lowest section. Alice is the medium colored blue. And then the rest of the population is at the top. So this is, since 2010, a breakdown. The 2016 Alice report just came out about a week ago. You might have seen something in the paper about it. So you can see that the numbers aren't changing very much. You get a slight difference. Like here, the actual poverty went down a little bit, which is good. But the Alice families went up. So you're still talking about basically the same number of people that are struggling. And what happens with this population of people is that, like I said, they're one crisis away from poverty. And so they move in and out of whether they qualify for actual poverty or not, just based on life circumstances. If any of you have an interest in poverty, I want to just let you know that our Women United, which is an affinity group of United Way, that's their main focus, is to work on poverty. They do educational, like bringing in bridges out of poverty or poverty simulations. If you have a business, they can bring in a poverty simulation for your staff to help them really understand. I can tell you, my experience, I know a lot about poverty, but when I went through a poverty simulation, it had a huge impact on me. When I actually was in a position, I had to make decisions. I had things I had to accomplish. It's all in my little notebook scenario that I had. But it became real to me. And I was shocked at the decisions I personally made when I was in that situation. If you haven't done one, I highly recommend it. So, household types by income. Again, you've got your Alice and your poverty breakout. So, single or cohabitating is the first one, families with children is the second, and 65 and older is the third. So you can kind of see how is this breaking out as far as our family makeup. Okay, now this guy, probably, yeah. I'm going to show you a couple things, and then we'll be ready to move on.
There's an economic phenomenon called the cliff effect, one that is an issue right at home in the state of Indiana. Let's take a look at Sarah and her family. Sarah is a single mom with 2 young children. She works full-time as a cashier for minimum wage. At this wage, Sarah does not earn enough to make ends meet. In order for her to bridge the gap between her low wages and the increasing costs of her family's most basic needs, Sarah needs the help of work supports, such as SNAP and child care subsidies. In an effort to become self-sufficient and not depend on work supports, Sarah works hard and is promoted to assistant manager. But when her income goes from $11 to $11.50 per hour, she loses her SNAP benefits, and her 50-cent raise has cost her over $2,500 per year. Determined to improve her circumstances, Sarah decides to go back to school and get the training she needs. Unfortunately, when her hourly wage increases from $15 to $15.50 per hour, she suddenly loses child care subsidies, worth close to $8,500 and equal to more than 25% of her annual resources. Despite the hard work, Sarah is now worse off. Her struggles are not unique. Nearly 1/3 of families in Indiana face these same budget struggles, and 71% of jobs do not pay wages necessary to afford a family's most basic needs. Every time Sarah takes one step forward, she's pushed 2 steps back. What happened to Sarah is called the cliff effect. It means families in Indiana are working harder and earning less, acting as a disincentive for families like Sarah's to work themselves out of the red and towards economic self-sufficiency. This presentation was made possible by the Indiana Institute for Working Families, the Indiana Community Action Association, the Indianapolis Foundation, and the National Center for Children in Poverty. To see a full copy of our report, please visit INCAP.
Here's another one for you. Okay, I'll go back. Connor watched this too. He looked at me and said, "Yeah, this is sad." I know.
The next door house, our house, the house across the street, the house 3 doors down, and the house around the corner were all in foreclosure. All of them.
I hear them in bed sometimes saying, "We skipped dinner because we need to feed our kids." It makes you feel that it's your fault, that they have to pay food for us, and that's wasting their money. Sometimes when I hear that, I cry sometimes.
Tomorrow, they're gonna auction off my house, my 5 acres here.
Come on, Kiki, come on.
I'm scared about my situation right now, but I'm also scared about Gerald's situation as he gets older. I gotta be here to protect him, or make his life as comfortable as I can.
Like, we're gonna have to put all of our stuff in storage and then live with my mom again. I'm 26, live with my mom again.
I never thought
You
I'd
never-
be getting help from the state, you know.
No,
Never thought
I
I'd
told
be-
myself I would never do that. I
would
would never
get
do that.
food stamps. I never put that in my head.
I got good grades in school, I went to college, and then to come out and still live impoverished.
I walked into the house and she was sitting in the kitchen in the dark, and I was like, "Mom, what's wrong?" And like she was crying because she just didn't know what she was gonna do for food for the next couple of weeks.
I don't need a freaking hot meal. Dang.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't.
You have school tomorrow.
And I can
I don't want you to go to sleep with an empty belly.
It's been 3 days since the water got turned off.
No electricity. Our neighbor has let us use his electricity.
I'm just waiting for children's services to come knock on the door and take my kids away.
A typical middle-class family in America is feeling very vulnerable. For the middle class in this country, we have a one strike and you're out economy. You lose your job or your health care, or you have a child with cancer or some catastrophe, you're at risk of having a number of bad things happen. And I think what people are experiencing in this country is how quickly you can go from middle class to being extremely vulnerable.
We can still file bankruptcy on the house too.
Maybe you'd be better than your mom's.
How could you say that?
I know she's not gonna put me up anything. You know what I'm saying?
It's not even an option for me. Or our kids.
So you're gonna stay with me even if we have to live in a tent?
In the snow?
Honestly, the way I look at it is, I don't know how I'm gonna make it.
I want to go to college. I want to be able to have a good life. And it makes me worry, like, how am I going to be successful?
So it's going to be a little rough the next couple days. I'm going to be staying at the shelter I don't know the name of.
People ask me where I lived at school, but I just said that I lived in the same place or by that place, so like they wouldn't like make fun of me, because my school is very like judgmental. They'll make fun of you if you live somewhere that isn't regular or normal.
So basically they're telling you that you have to pay every single bill?
They don't go back and pay half medical due to budget cuts and stuff.
I just feel like it's all my fault. You have to pay so much money.
I think it's not your fault. Or what, you got sick. We couldn't change that. But I don't want you to stress about it every day. By all means, I want you to just be a kid. Doesn't everything always work out?
No. We used to talk about what we were going to do with our life and our dreams and what we wanted for the kids, and all we talk about now is money.
Forget the dreams. How do we make it to tomorrow?
Right.
Tomorrow's the dream. This dinner is the dream. You can turn the lights on, turn the water on, that's a dream.
So we are helping you with $945.
You're kidding me. If we did not have those resources, I don't know what we would have done. I really don't. Those resources are the only thing that I think saved us.
So now we have a place here.
Oh, Gunner, are you happy?
Yeah, I'm happy.
I don't want to have like a mansion or anything, and, like stacks of money like sitting right next to me. I want to have like just a normal house, maybe a dog, maybe 2 kids. I prefer 1.
Yeah, I do want to get to a place where I don't have to worry. I think that's every kid's dream.
We got just a few more minutes. I gotta figure out what I just did. You should come help me.
While you're doing that, let me make a couple of comments about the video.
Yeah, just not much, or you're gonna make me over.
So, a couple of things when we start talking about poverty, because I know people can be judgmental when people are facing things like that, of that nature, or who have never experienced a car breakdown or a layoff. And I would like to share just a personal testimony to kind of help with that. So there was a summer going into junior high that we didn't have lights for 2 months. And I had 2 working parents, okay? And there's 7 of us, parents married, things of that nature, prideful. But I don't think people, sometimes people are so judgmental. I remember, you know, again, like the young boy said, that, you know, people are judgmental and kids are trying to hide things and being bullied. So just keep that in your mindset, in your frame. It was only probably, I've been with NIPSCO 7 years ago. I started 7 years ago, so I was laid off from a company about 9 years ago, okay? Had to file bankruptcy, was on food stamps for a couple of months. And mind you, I have an engineering degree, okay? Going to get my master's, going to law school, you know, single mom. And I don't think people understand the importance of assistance and what that means, but that cliff is really, it's real. That cliff is so real. When I went to them, and how hard it is to get assistance. I'm there with a folder with tabs and, you know, all my information, but it took 3 months for me to get food stamps. And I'm like, look, I gotta make a decision on paying my mortgage or buying food, right? And that's not that long ago. And you all know me from the community. You know that, you know, people don't understand what you're dealing with at home and how important it is. That's why I'm always giving and trying to give, because people need to understand that these are people that are amongst you that are doing this. So, you know, people make these little tiny comments, oh, they're just lazy. That is not the case. And I just hope that If you take anything away from this today, is that you understand that we have people in this community that need help and don't need judgment. So I hope you got that from the video, okay? I just want to share that because I thought it was important.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking the same thing as we're looking at, especially in American Winter, that, you know, these are real folks. It's all around us, and we recently had a man who was at a home team meeting, and he mentioned that he had been homeless. He was working at Menards, I believe, and homeless, and he happened to call 211 and got some help. And then, you know, I mean, he was kind of like a little spokesperson for our 211 and the services that we offer here. And this is going on all around us. When you see those ALICE stats, that's what you're seeing. They're not just numbers on a page. So we're going to really quickly, because I'm going to keep us on time, we're going to talk a little bit about leadership and influence. You have the slides in your paperwork, and there is an article that will be in the next slide here that you can go to. There's something called Mind Tools, and they have great resources around leadership, around assessing your business, around planning and strategy. I highly recommend it. Somewhere I recently saw my booklet with all that stuff printed out, so I'll have to find it. So anyway, this is John Maxwell. He said leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. If you don't have influence, you'll never be able to lead others. Followers in voluntary organizations can't be forced to get on board. If the leader has no influence with them, they won't follow. The person with the influence is the real leader. And I love this one. He who thinks he leads but has no followers is only taking a walk. Interesting. So, you know, a lot of times the words leader, leadership, they get confused with manager. I mean, a lot of times we think that the person who is kind of like the rule keeper, keeps everybody on track, makes sure things get done the way they should get done, they see that as the leader. But the two words really are very different in what they mean. And we need good managers. We need good people to keep us on track and to make sure that we're moving toward where we want to go. But when we set that vision of where do we want to go, that takes leadership. That's the difference. So leaders create an inspiring vision for the future. They motivate and inspire people to engage with that vision. They make it real. They show them the benefits. And why would we want to get from A to Z? My favorite quote is this: people need a vision to pull them through the pain of transformation. I love that quote because vision does that. It pulls you. You carry that picture in your mind of where you want to be. For me, it was to create a framework where our community could solve their problems on their own. That was my vision, my personal vision. And it pulled me through a lot of darn hard work, I'll tell you what. Managing the delivery of the vision, this is where management and leadership come together. The leader, you can't be there all the time, but you set up people who are inspired by the vision to help make sure it stays on track, and coaching and building a team to be more effective at achieving that vision. So I'm not going to take the time to go into each one. It's basically, you know, the things I've just said. On your sheet, you do see this article, though, that you can go to. And when you go to that, it's a Mind Tools article, but here's the trick. When you go into Mind Tools, they'll let you do, I think it's 3 clicks on hyperlinks before they come up and say, oh, we're so glad you're enjoying this. By the way, if you want to pay blah, 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 you can get more of this. Some of you might decide you want that subscription. I've had it in the past. It's incredible, the resources they have. Really, really good stuff. Vision and coaching. All right, so the last thing I want to do, we're going to take a break. 15-minute break. Dave will be up in a few minutes, as I want to tell you that our website, which you have it right here, is a wealth of information for you. Many of you are going to be, most of you, hopefully all of you, are going to be representing United Way of LaPorte County over the next few months, and hopefully long after that. And so You have a great resource guide in your packet that Dave's put together for you. But in addition to that, you have our website, beautifully created and designed by our lovely Miss Keisha Pate. So, great gift to United Way, Keisha. Thank you. So be sure to. Yeah. I know, you poor thing. I call you all the time. All right. This is me. If you want to contact me, right now we're going to take a 15-minute break. Be back at 1:45, and we'll go with Dave. Thanks, everyone.